Hello, lads and lasses. It's Gizmo, and we are here with our first episode ever of Kerbal Space Program. Now, I've never done a Kerbal Space Program video, and we're jumping right in with Kerbal Space 2. I've been playing a ton of this, and I'm absolutely in love with it. Now, you're not going to get all that scientific wibbly wobbly stuff, change in velocity stuff with me, but we are just going to have fun, test some random stuff, and just enjoy the game for what it is. Just a fun space ship building game. Now, they did recently come out with a campaign. So we're going to go ahead and start a new campaign on operation. Now, there are different difficulties you can do, hard, or quick load, stock vessel, stuff like that, or normal, where you can revert, quick load, stock vessel, all that stuff. Now, we are going to go with hard, just so we don't have the reverting, quick load, and all that stuff. We could do like rocket scientist, crazy, but we're not gonna. We're just gonna go with hard, so we don't have any of that reverting. And quick. What we do is what we do, and if we make mistakes, sorry, bud, we make mistakes. I've played some of this game. I've gotten to the moon. I've gotten to Minmus. I've done all the cool stuff that you can do. But I wanted to just play it again, play it with you guys, play it on hard mode, and see what happens. Now, I'm not going to be posting these videos weekly, or I might, I'm not really sure. I might honestly just record a bunch of videos at once and post them sometime during the week, because I do have the Satisfactory, playing that game and posting those weeklies, and so that's my weekly video source for now, and when that's done, we'll get another weekly video source. But for now, it's going to be Satisfactory with a little bit of Kerbal Space too. And maybe some other games. I do have a bunch of games on my Steam, my library, that I feel like playing and wanting to post, and I'll probably do like 6-hour long, 8-hour long playthroughs of just one-shot games that I can do in that amount of time. But when it comes to like weekly uploads, if I stick in Satisfactory until I get a new game, and Satisfactory we're caught up on, once we hit the end of update 8 on Satisfactory, going into something.
Your new space program, leaping forward into the cosmos. Since the dawn of Kerbal kind, we have looked to the sky and wondered what sublime mysteries lie hidden in the darkness, like jewels never beheld. These untold treasures may soon reveal themselves due to the efforts of recently founded Kerbal Space Program.
Oh my, I think that might have been the only copy of the orientation film. Hold on! Slides, somewhere. Welcome to your first day running the Kerbal Space Program. This campus hosts the greatest ever gathering of astronomers, astronauts, and engineers. After years of focused effort, this collection of geniuses has created several very impressive buildings. We believe we have all the necessary pieces to take our first steps off the ground. The best way to advance our technologies further is to get up there and learn by doing. All we need now is somebody to show us how to put all these parts together. Well, we also need somebody to help us out with the flying. We need a lot of help, actually. That's why you're here. My name is Paige, by the way. If you need any hints, feel free to visit me over at the training center. Everything in there is well padded, so it's a great place to get up and running. Welcome aboard!
The thing with Kerbal Space Program is that it is still in early. They start coming out with things. For instance, our campus that currently built. So unlike in the original Space Kerbal Program, where you had to build your entire campus, we don't have that. We go to mission control. Right off the bat, we can see that there's missions. So we'll get a bunch of missions. Right now, we only have one, which is just to launch a rocket in an altitude of at least 10 kilometers. That's an easy one. Next, we have the training center, vehicle assembly building, tracking station, research and development building. All of these buildings are already upgraded. You don't have to do anything. you already are there. Now the science in this one is quite a bit different. See, there's different stages of science. This one is to get you, the first one is to get you essentially to moon landing and a little bit farther, maybe a little bit out of space, or out of our, the sphere of the Kerbal homeworld gravitational, gravity. The second one is to get you even farther out, see all the other buildings or all the other planets, and you can see the background is kind of the same, right? It's just deeper parts into Kerbal, and this one is outside of it. So if we go into map mode, M, Kerbal Space Center, hit M. Apparently we can. So we can go into the training center, and if you go into the training center, there's a lot of different things that'll teach you how to do stuff. Place, how rockets work, test rocket, rocket construction, all the different controls and everything. We're not going to do any of this. Orbital transfers, we might actually get to this one, because orbits are weird. Manipulating orbits, electrical charge, earning science, orbiting, and reentry. Maneuver plan, planning a maneuver, capturing all that stuff is all going to be super helpful eventually. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and build the first vehicle, because why not? Let's build our first vehicle. See where that gets us. Alright, so it's pretty much the same setup. You have your pod, which is your main and what you're going to be working with. You've got your fuel tanks. That's small. So this is the smaller one. See? And then you've got this one, which is bigger. So we can do a couple of these. Only a couple, because you have to make sure that your thrust weight ratio is correct. That does take into consideration. And you can actually check that right here. You can see your center of mass. You can see a bunch of different other things. You can also see your engineer's report. So you can see your thrust weight, total mass, your dry mass, your parts, height within your... Now your dry mass is if you don't have any fuel. So if I take all of my fuel, see that the total mass and the dry mass is pretty close, because we don't have anything added to it that's considered weight. Add this, the total mass of all of our stuff is 6.2. That's including all of our fuel. Dry mass with no fuel is 1.48. The less fuel that you have, the less you weigh. Now, we go into thrust, you can see thrust/weight ratio. Add a thruster on. Your thrust to weight ratio is 2.392. And now that number will change the more or less items that you have attached. That's a 3.325. That means you're getting, if we do this, you're getting about 2.392 thrust per weight. What you can do is you can actually max this out in number pretty close to, you got 1.683. That means that you have 1.683 thrust to weight. You can see that as well. You go into your thrust, you can see that max thrust is 1.88.1 kilonewtons, and that's in atmosphere. That's in one atmosphere. For all intents and purposes, we're going to be in one atmosphere the entire time that we're on the Kerbal homeworld. Now, that's 1.88.1 kilonewtons, and we can see that the total mass, 11.39 tons. And so you can do some math. You can actually figure out, basically, if you take the total mass tons, and then you take the amount of gravity that you have on the planet, you can figure out how many kilonewton thrust you need. But if you look at the thrust to weight ratio, 1.63. As long as it's above 1, it'll lift. Alright, so now the next thing we need to do is add a decoupler. So what you're going to do is break off a section, coupler, and put this back on. Now this decoupler makes it so that this pod can detach. One thing you're going to do is so this is essentially just stages, right? So you want to add in stages. For instance, if I take this off, add in a new stage, which there's plus. So you just hover over it and there's a plus. So now what we're going to do, section these off, because you want your thrusts to go. Then you want this to be a separate one. Now, we also need to have stabilizers. If you don't have stabilizers, turn and do all sorts of and do that. And the last but not least, parachute. And this one attaches to the nose. Now, we bring back up our engineer's report. See, command pod is missing a heat shield. Command pod may not survive current entry. Heat shield is going to be, we don't have it. We shouldn't be getting high enough to where we heat shield. You can see it's telling us we don't have one. And our thrust weight ratio is still 1.661. We've got 16 parts. We hit launch. One of the cool things that they have now, they give us some of our different things we need. It gives us a countdown. Turn it down real quick. Alright. Now, one of the biggest things is that once you hit 100 meters a second, you want to start your gravity turn. You go until you hit about 90 degrees, and you're stable at 90. Right about here. You can hit that, and you can hit your apoapsis. Now, we can also switch to M mode at this point. There we go. We're on the map view. And you're starting to see this arc. Now, this is your apoapsis. This is the highest point of your trajectory that your space rocket, your shuttle, is going to go. And we just beat that mission. So now if I head into mission control, that's fine. We can leave it. We're going to be really quick. Launch a rocket. So I'm just going to continue through this. Makes sense. Now out of atmosphere. And we can go back to tracking station. Go back to fly safe 1 and go back to... Once your apoapsis is above 70, you're going to burn it down. Go. Once your apoapsis is above 70,000, you're basically outside of the influence of the Kerbin, which is the planet. You're outside of its influence of any of its like air resistance and stuff like that. So when you're below 70,000, and I didn't cut this correct. So once you're below 70,000, you start to get a drag, which will reduce your rocket's force, but it'll also cause your decrease. So you want to make sure that you're decreasing your apoapsis, or you don't increase your apoapsis past 70. Once you hit 70, you're basically just going to chill there and allow your spaceship to go right up to the apoapsis. So what we're going to do is climb warp to point. Actually go into mission control and see if we left the atmosphere. Got it out of atmosphere. Cool. Do this one. Boom. 50 signs. Now orbit Kerbin and buoyancy test. Orbit Kerbin, just to orbit. Create a stable orbit. Go back to jump back into your tracking station. You're going to click on your rocket, and then you're going to hit Control, press M again for your map. And what we're going to do is heading toward our apoapsis. We're going to get pretty darn close, increase our thrust just a little. What increasing our thrust is going to do is increase our apoapsis, but it's also going to increase the point at which we touch down at. So in order to get a stable orbit, what you need to do is essentially keep your apoapsis 30 seconds away at all times. And that just is a good number to keep it even and a good amount. Kind of just keeping your thrust at a good spot. Now you're going to keep going and keep fluttering your thrust and all the way around. You also have to make sure that you're leaving some thrust for your decrease. Trying to get back, and you're trying to degrade orbit. That's pretty easy to do. What we're going to do is just keep fluttering our thrust. watching this point. This point will eventually form a giant circle. Now, we're probably not going to get there on our first flight, which is totally fine. I don't expect us to. But if we can, cooler. We're going to get our apoapsis, and then the other one is going to be the periapsis. So we're not going to have enough fuel, even if we do get an orbit right now, to decrease the... We're not going to hit that right now. You can see we're very close to having an orbit, but basically we're going to be on the other side of the planet. The one thing we can do now is, because we're out of fuel, we don't need this section of our craft. We can actually just go ahead and hit the next stage. Now what that did is that activated the decoupler, then it also activated our parachute. So our parachute, you can see, is set to... It's not armed right now, but it will arm. So if you go to deploy settings, see deploy mode is safe. The minimum pressure it needs is 0.01 kPa, and it'll deploy at 1,000. Now what you want to kind of do is figure out where this is going to deploy at. You can kind of be safer with 2,000 to 1,000. These are also settings you do want to change while you're in the... Now, we've completed most of what we can. This is just going to... This launch, this is just going to kind of be floating here and following this path, this trajectory that you can see. What we can actually do is just go back to mission control. If there's anything we completed, there isn't. The buoyancy test we will complete. So go back to our tracking station. See that in the map, this guy is going to... I think this water that it's landing in, you can't see because it's dark. No, we can't see right now. What we could do is go back to vehicle assembly building. Actually, we have science. We can find the science. Let's go back to research and development building. We got 75 science, which we grabbed from doing all these different experiments. Light launchers, so some more stuff. Solid fuel boosters, which gives us solid fuel, which means that those are basically just boosters that they either are on or off. Can't really change it. We also have orbital rocketry, bigger solid fuel booster. We've got orbital methlock engine, mainly just for trying to move your engine around side to side, and you get a better thrust in an atmosphere with a less fuel loose. The other thing we have is aerodynamics, which are building planes and stuff. We also get a small reaction wheel, which helps to stabilize us from having a trajectory that goes left to right. And then we get environmental science as well. Environmental science is what we're going to do, just so we can get all of that science going. We're going to go ahead and grab the other 10s, because we have enough, and now we're stuck at 10. We're going to go back to the VAQB with all of our new stuff. And we're going to build a new rocket. Take this guy. On it. We've got some bigger fuels, which is nice. Grab the engineer report. Yep. Now another thing we have going here, we've also got the Putnik. Now this is a remote guidance system, so we can guide it from the ground instead of having a crew that goes up. So now if we go into engines, you can see we've got two different ones, the Reliant and the Swivel. You can see the max thrust in here. This is max thrust of 2.21, max thrust of 188. Now the difference is this one allows us to change our trajectory, this one doesn't. So this is going to be great for like a ground stage where you have fins that can guide you. This will be great for more second stage. What I want to do, put this one in here, connect this to that, and this to that. You also want to do a decoupler. The decoupler at the bottom will make it so that when this is depleted, this decoupler will detach, and then you can use the thruster that's right here to move this tiny part of the ship. Now this is going to be a huge help for trying to do maneuvering in space. Now you can also use these radial decouplers. Click down here for symmetry mode. You just add two of these. Go to our engines, solid fuel booster. Go ahead and smack one. Now, I don't like the way that's positioned. Not even. We're actually going to go ahead and drop it down to a little bit down here. That way it's kind of closer to the ground. Alright. Now another thing that we can do, we actually have an adapter. If we wanted to, we could put one tank to two tanks. We're not going to do that right now, but it's something that we could. Now, we do also need stabilizers. do the small stabilizer that we had last time. Again, in temperature mode of 2. We're going to place those on there on either side, and then we're going to do 2 more. This gives us the left to right and forward, or south and. We also have solar arrays, so if we're going to do something like add a Stapotnik on there, where this is just by itself, that's going to be something that would probably be a good add. Now we do have science as well. We have to bring science back down to the ground. We're going to put the science underneath it. We're going to go ahead and add a parachute. Parachute. There we go. Now this might be a little heavy. We'll find out whether it burns up in entry. Now we can take this guy, make sure that its staging is correct. We're going to mess with the deploy settings in the MK16. Go ahead right here and make it to about 2000, just to be a little bit safer. Now, you can see this stage goes for this. Breakaways, the stage goes. You don't want these breakaways there. The stage will go. Boom. You want to move over the engineer's report and add in a new. You want to take away this guy to its own state. Add in this rocket with. So when this breaks away, this rocket goes. This breaks away, this parachute attaches. All right, now we can go ahead and do a launch. One thing I forgot to do in the very beginning, one thing you can do, is pop that guy out. He's now doing an EVA. Again, right-click on him, run a service survey. Valid because he's not on a service, but you can run a crew observation. Or not. Oh, because he's attached. Oh. Get back. But you can still click on this, and you can still run a crew observation. You can see your crew observation out there. It's only worth 4 science. Fine. Now, go ahead and just skip the countdown. Here go the solid rocket boosters. They're either on or off. See, I can't turn them off. But they give us a really good amount of thrust. So we're going to go ahead and do our gravity turn now. And you can do another crew observation. Yep. And the Science Center, you can actually run a environment survey as well. And the environment survey data is just Kerbal atmosphere. Alright, that's gone. And now, this goes into effect. I don't know why it's not on. Activate. Yep. I don't know why it didn't activate. Go back in the map mode. You can see this is starting to come down now. And we're going to check our apoapsis. We're starting our gravity turn, letting this point towards the prograde, the apoapsis. We're on our second stage. We're watching for this apoapsis to hit 70,000. You can see our second rocket ship is now hitting a re-entry. It's at an altitude of 118. Once it hits 70, it's going to slow down quite a bit. And this is something that you can do back to back. It's like once this guy's set up and he's in an orbit or he's in the path that you want to take, you can just let him go as well. You know, launch another vehicle. So it's at 70, so we're going to go ahead and cut. What we're going to do is time warp to point. So about 30 minutes away from the apoapsis point is where you want to be. You can watch this. It says a minute, seconds. And once it gets to 30 seconds, more or less, turn it off and just thrust until it gets back to 30 seconds. You can see that point is moving very far away. Alright, so now we're at 30 seconds. We're just going to keep fluttering until we're going to try to keep it at 30. Alright, that stage is done. Moving on to the next stage. And just for review purposes, you could see we left that stage behind and moved on to our last stage. If the apoapsis increases, that's perfectly fine. We're not going to be at a perfect alignment for it to not increase in altitude. Hopefully this is enough to get us to where we want to be, which is going to try to orbit. I don't think I gave it enough fuel. That second stage, that third stage, the very last stage, I think I should have given it 2 fuel canisters instead of just 1. Let's find out. See if we can do this. Here it goes, here it goes, here it goes. There we go. There's our periapsis. Oh, so close. We can't revert to launch because that's not what we have. So we're 59,000. So you can see we're very close to hitting our apoapsis, but unfortunately, we go back to the mission control or tracking state. Our other vehicle, like it did not survive its re-entry. Yeah, so it looks like our other vehicle did not survive. That's unfortunate, which means this guy probably won't survive either. This is very sad, but that's what happens. So if we go back to vehicle assembly building, well, we could go back to mission control and see what else. Back to vehicle assembly building. And the reason that it didn't survive is maybe our reentry was too steep. If you have a very steep reentry, it'll cause that issue because it'll be too much into... I didn't save it. But you'll be too much into the atmosphere. And you want to cut through the atmosphere pretty quick. You don't stay in the atmosphere. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase how many we have. Second or last stage. We're going to do 2 on the swivel. This is the last stage. We're going to go ahead and have a decoupler. And we'll just add a couple more fuel tanks. Do like 3. We'll have the Reliant. What I'm actually going to do is put this back on 2. Go back to our solid fuel tanks, like so. And we're going to do a nose cone. This makes it more dynamic. Else, science, which goes here. Another decoupler underneath. That's stacked back on top, like so. And a parachute attached. Stabilizer, we're not going to do. The biggest difference that I have now is that I've got 2 stages on that. And then what we're going to do, we're actually going to have the old Reliant go along with the reason for that is just because we want to have I'm not sure if I have enough lift because we've increased the capacity. I don't think we'll have enough lift just from the solid fuel boosters by themselves. We're going to go ahead and attempt to add that old Reliant in. That way we have thrust. All right. These 2 will go at the same time. This will be broken off. Once this is broken off, we want this to go. Or sorry, that's incorrect. So yeah, these go down here. Nope, this goes... Hold on. Alright. These 2 get broken off. Okay. These 2 go. This gets broken. This goes. That gets broken off. And then that gets... Alright. Let's go ahead to the launch pad. Let's try this again. Go. And we're going to skip countdown. Now what we're going to do is reduce the old Reliant. So you can see I'm not using the old Reliant at all, which is good. The only bad thing is I don't have any control surfaces, but we're still into the... We're still able to do our gravity descent. It's fine. Here we go. Oh, I did that wrong. Right? No, I didn't. Okay. I actually did this correct. Yeah, we don't have the control surfaces, which is something that we should have, but I'm not too worried about that. This guy, we're also not worried. His altitude is going to come down, and his periapsis is below 70,000. So what's going to happen is he's going to hit the Kerbin's sphere of... It's, what is it called? It's atmosphere, and it'll slow itself down. So it'll basically just have air brakes that it'll use for itself. Yeah, this was not the best launch. I actually should revert this, but I can't. Fortunate. This launch is gonna suck because I'm not. I haven't gone high enough to go this far out yet. So we're too much out of a low angle, but I don't have any control surfaces, and since we're not out of the atmosphere, I can't do anything because it's all just gravity turn right now, fortunately. And I can feel it. I'm trying to move it, but I'm stuck because I don't have the control surfaces. That's a big blunder, not having those control surfaces. But oh well. So that's something to note, is just when you're missing those control surfaces, you're going to be kind of screwed. Yeah, we're not going to get out of 24, I don't think. There we go. Now we're small enough that I can kind of maneuver it. It's very unstable though. But it's small enough that I can maneuver it around. And you can see I'm increasing our apoapsis. This is just the second stage that I'm using currently. Alright, once I get our apoapsis above a 70, let's cut all. We're going to go until time warp to point. Because we're trying to get back into that space, and because we still have such a good sideways trajectory, we might be able to finagle this into a sort of... We might be able to get a good orbit on this, but I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. You can see I'm out of its influence of its atmosphere. Right now I'm just trying to complete the trajectory. Time warp finished. It's fine. I'm just letting the thrust go so I can increase this while we're still decreasing the time. Because as long as we're in space, I'm fine with it increasing. Alright, let's keep pushing up. And the reason that you wait 30 seconds is just because that kind of keeps your apoapsis close to the same height. If you don't have it as 30 seconds, it just increases your apoapsis height. Usually past what you want, but I'm not too worried about what our orbit looks like, as long as we just get an orbit. We want to find that periapsis, which we're about to hit. Here we go. When we hit that periapsis, we just want to make sure the periapsis gets above 70, and we completed our first orbit. You can see, science forward, first orbit. Now, we can go back to mission control. For orbit Kerbin. Completed, continue. Yep, 75 signs. Now the next one is time to visit the nearest neighbor, the moon. Establish an orbit around the moon with an apoapsis less than 2,400 and a periapsis greater than 60. Going green, signs Junior to a vessel and perform an environment survey on Kerbin and spacewalking. Perform an EV outside of Kerbin. Now that we can actually do. So we go back to our tracking station. We can go back to this guy right here. Hit control. And go ahead and EV this guy. While he's EV'd, go ahead and route a crew observation. That. Giving me the ability to? You having an issue? Matched? I can take you off. One thing you can do is just hit space, go, but because you're in space, you're not going to go anywhere. There we go. So now you can do the crew observation once. Takes 10 seconds, he just looks around. And it gives you signs. You can see, we've now got 24 signs for doing a crew observation in low orbit. Now we can go ahead and board again. Run another crew observation. Okay. And we can click our Science Junior. Hit Run Environment Survey. Look at that. Gives us another 30. So now we've got 54 signs outside of the science that we got for the other stuff. So now in order to deorbit ourselves, what we're going to do is just trying to get the periapsis down to 75. We're actually going to go ahead and time warp to our apoapsis. This is one of the best ways. You want to be on the exact opposite side of your periapsis because it's the quickest way to get your periapsis closer. You're going to hit the retrograde. Retrograde basically just means decreasing your orbit, whereas prograde means hit retrograde and just full on blast. And we're just going to do this What we want to do is we don't want to have too harsh of an impact, but we also don't want to have too little. Now what we can do is we can actually time warp the point facing into retrograde. And the reason we face into retrograde is this will take all the heat. And what I'm actually going to do to make sure that we land safely, I'm going to manually take us in. I keep going back in, time warp the point. So once we get below 70, we're going to be hitting atmosphere. Watch this. It'll be the first time we watch this happen. Yep. Once we hit 70, we're going to start seeing burning. That's how you know that you're inside Kerbin's atmosphere. Go. And you can also watch this. This is atmosphere, this is space, this is way more atmosphere. This is probably like the ionosphere and stuff. Figure out this stuff. I know I'm not a big science guy. When it comes to that stuff, I know we get the stratosphere, ionosphere, what is it, lithosphere, stuff like that. There's a couple of them. I don't know all of them. What I'm going to do is, once I start getting some, see the heat, I'm actually going to burn, so I can decrease our meters a second. This will make us have a safer orbit, because it's going to slow us down quite a bit. Alright. Then, now that we've hit that point, see, we've decreased our space as well. Go back into M. I'm going to wait till the last second to depart us. Alright. Let me go ahead and detach. There we go. Our speed's going to decrease as we get into the atmosphere. I don't know if we'll be safe. I could have kept that on to keep us safer, because that would have burnt away first before us burning away, since we don't have a heat shield just yet. But I think I decreased our speed and gave us enough of a trajectory that we should be safe. Ooh, maybe not. We need to slow down enough to get this heat over. Let's see. We can manage. If this explodes, that's fine. Okay. It's fine. We barely made it. That's okay. Yeah, so we barely overheated. It's okay. One of the reasons that we went down so quickly is just because once that weight was taken off, it allowed us to take off. The way gravity works, when you lose mass, you lose speed. Force equals mass times acceleration. With less mass, you have less force. So now we can just go ahead and speed this up. We are going to land. Unfortunately, it won't be in water, but somewhere. Can I have this? Deploy for me? Thank you. I had it deploy just because sometimes with mountains, the ground doesn't get calculated correctly. So you sometimes crash into grounds. We haven't had a space shuttle reach the ground yet, so to make sure that we make this one reach the ground. Right, we're gonna go ahead and speed it up and just wait for this guy to land. Because one of the things we can do is once we land down here, we can actually get out of our area and we can run some science and stuff. Now, we didn't get to keep the science that we had. I don't think the report is stuck in there. Yeah, I think all the science was held inside of the science bin, so unfortunately that science report that we did in outer space isn't going to be a part of it. I was hoping we'd be able to save it. I probably should have kept it attached until the very last second when the overheating and just let it overheat itself. I didn't, so. Alright, we can slow it down. We can actually run crew observation over the mountain. We can do a crew observation landed on the mountain. You can see we still have 62 science. And then you can just EVA this guy. You can let go. And from here, you can do a surface survey. You're in the mountains, and each part of Kerbin has a different survey that you can do. You can do the mountains, you can do the beach, you can do the water, you can do plains, and a bunch of other crew observation. Surface mountains. Oh, there we go. Then I've got a total of 68 science. Apparently it's already been done. So if we go ahead and back on, forward, escape, and recover vessel. First time that we've recovered a vessel. Close, and we're going to go back to our mission control. We've completed a couple different. Got going green. Ooh, 25 science. spacewalking, which is perform an EBA, which is pretty. All right, now the next ones we have to do is the buoyancy test, which is just landing in the water, lunar bus, which is just creating that orbit around Kerbin. All right, we're gonna go ahead and do those in the next episode. For this episode, we're gonna go ahead and call it there. I think we did a good job. We managed to get in orbit around Kerbin. We launched our first vessel and saw how easy that was, and then we went through the different stages. And the reason that we do different stages is you have the first stage, which is kind of like your launch to upper atmosphere. Your second stage, which is going to be something like getting through the upper atmosphere, and then getting kind of an orbit aligned. And then the third stage, which is the final stage, is usually just for trying to do small maneuvers, small orbits, things like that. Or if you're trying to land on the moon. Now, we're going to see those stages change. We're going to end up like 5-6 stages later on when we're trying to get to places that are far away. But for now, it's just going to be kept in like 3 different stages. And those 3 stages are going to be, I mean, you can also just stick with 3 stages. 1 for getting out of the atmosphere, 1 to getting where you're going. And the last and third one is going to be the one that either gets you home or gets you in the orbit. And you can have a 4th stage where you have, first is getting out of orbit, getting out of atmosphere. The second is creating that, or going to where you need to go. The third is going to be creating that orbit around that planet. And then the last is going to be the one that gets you home and gets you safe. But for now, I'm going to see you in the next video. If you folks enjoyed this one, give us a thumbs up. And if you want to keep up to date on all the random videos that I have coming out, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. As always, see you folks lads and lasses in the next one. Bye.